here this morning. Welcome to Hungry Dinosaurs here at the Royal BC Museum. And I'm here this morning with Dr. Victoria Arbour. And my name is Liz, and I'm on the learning team at the Royal BC Museum. And we're going to be together for about 45 minutes this morning. We're here up in the gallery with some dinosaurs, and it's before the museum opens, so it's hopefully going to be nice and quiet. So we're going to be together for about 45 minutes. We end at 10 o'clock. And so if you've never been here before, we've got a beautiful map up here. We are on the west coast of Canada, way over in the province of British Columbia. And there's a close-up of the province. We're actually, Victoria, the capital of British Columbia, is on Vancouver Island. We're right down there at the southern tip of Vancouver Island. And there's a picture of our museum from the outside. So we are on the left-hand side of the building. And the museum sits on the territories of the Esquimalt and Songhees First Nations. And they are the Lekwungen speaking people. And we're very grateful to them for caring for the land for all these years and still tending and caring for the land. And the Lekwungen word for the place that the museum sits on is Kamusang. Kamusang. And I think Jenny will get a chance eventually to type Kamusang into the chat so you can see what that looks like and you can try saying it yourself. And if you know what territory you're in, go ahead and type that in the chat. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is flip it around. And we also have another guest with us as well. Corinne from the Royal Botanical Gardens is with us today, and she'll be introducing herself in a few minutes. So without further ado, I'm going to switch the camera over so we can talk to Victoria about some dinosaurs.
Hello. Yeah, I'm standing in front of Sue, the T-Rex from South Dakota. And Sue is obviously an iconic dinosaur. T-Rex is this huge predator that lived about 66 million years ago in a rock unit that we call the Hell Creek Formation. And Sue is a big predator, but today we're going to be talking about plants. So we're also going to talk about some of the plant-eating dinosaurs that were around at the same time as Sue.
Okay. Fantastic. We're going to now switch over to Corinne, who's going to, hello, Corinne, good morning. We'll let you take it away. Oh, not hearing you yet. There we go.
Oh, no, there we go. Yes.
Oh, it went away again. We just can't quite hear you yet. And while we get that, sorry, I just want to thank all the people who put in the chat so far the places that they're visiting from.
So I'm going to ask if the technology person can mute me and unmute me, because I'm having a real problem trying to find that little button when it comes up. It's just a little slower on my end.
Oh, for sure.
So if that's okay. So welcome everybody. As Liz said, my name is Corinne Davidson Taylor. I'm with Royal Botanical Gardens, and this just gives you an idea of what it was like about maybe about 3 weeks ago. We've got a little snow and it comes and goes right now. But this just gives you an idea of what it's like here. And we have a variety of landscapes that we are here the stewards of, but we're also on the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee, of the Huron-Wendat, and of the Anishinaabe. So we have a really important role to continue to look after this land. And we're also, I want to acknowledge and honor the fact that we are also on the territories of the Six Nations of the Grand River First Nation territory, and we're also on the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. So this is a very important place here with a lot of diversity of wetlands, forests, and meadows. And just to give you an idea of where we are in relation to where you might be, and some of you might be in British Columbia, some of you might be in, and some of you might be in other parts of Canada, including Ontario, because I saw where someone was, and I thought maybe we're close to where we are. Some of you maybe even in the United States. But just to give you an idea, so all the way down there to all the way here where that little blue dot is. And we're on the southwest tip of Lake Ontario. And you can see that we're about an hour away from Toronto, about an hour away from Niagara Falls. But Royal Botanical Gardens is a huge botanical garden, and we're the largest in Canada. And it includes about 1,100 hectares. And of that, only 100 is gardens. The rest is natural sanctuaries. And so what's interesting is some of the plants that we're going to be talking about were actually around in the late Cretaceous period, which is sort of the era or the epoch of when Sioux was around. And this might have been what a forest looked like. And it contains some early vascular plants. It contains gymnosperms, so naked seed plants, sort of like a conifer would be, but it also includes things like club mosses. And you've probably seen these if you've gone for a walk in a forest, or maybe horsetails. And I love horsetails. They're so cool. They're called, another word, the scientific name is equisetum, equi being horse. And then we've got things like ferns, lots of different ferns. And actually, speaking of ferns, some of what we know is because of fossils. So I happen to have right here a little fossil of a fern. I'm just going to have to take the lid off in a sense, and there. So there it is. There's a fern right there. So we know some of the plants that were around at that time. And let's just continue to see what other plants there might have been. So there were things like ginkgos, and there were plants like cycads. And cycads, whenever I see a cycad, I think of almost like a pineapple. I know it's not quite, but it's a really interesting plant. And then we had conifers, typical conifers that we might sort of recognize, but there's also other conifers that were around with different types of needles, and we're going to be exploring some of those in a minute. And then we also eventually had the angiosperms, the flowering plants. And this started coming in the early Cretaceous, but it really took off. The numbers and the variety and the diversity of plants really took off. Probably recognize some of the ones that would have been sort of around, or their early relatives would have been around in the late Cretaceous epoch. And also things like this, where you get really obvious flowers, like a magnolia. These would have been plants that would have been around. So I want to talk about a couple of conifers, because we're going to do a quick little activity, and I hope you've got a twig or two of some conifers, because we're going to take a look at those. And this one, by the way, you probably recognize, and maybe you've seen this in your local nursery, maybe in your store. It is called a Norfolk Island pine. It's originally from Australia, but there's another tree that was probably in this area, or in your area, in the BC area, called the monkey puzzle tree, now found in Chile. And what's crazy is when you look at these plants, they haven't got just needles on their twigs, they've got them all over on the stem as well. So would be kind of a difficult plant to climb or to get their food from, because you can see the needles all up on the stem of the plant. And then there are things like taxus, you may recognize that, or a yew plant with those unusual cones, and they are cones. And then you've got things like redwood. Probably some of you probably recognize redwood, very different needles almost like those on a yew. And I actually have, and again, I have a fossil of this one. So here is a fossil cone right there. And this is a cone from a tree that we have. And this is the dawn redwood. So it's a metasequoia. So it's related to sequoia. And then here is a piece of petrified wood. So, this helps us understand what plants were around at that time. And then you've got the pine that you saw before. So what I'd like to do is use some samples of little twigs that I've got, and let's see if we can find out how to quickly identify. So when you go out for a walk in the forest, you can go, oh, that's a pine. That's a fir, that's a spruce, that's a cedar. Okay, so let's take a quick look. So I've got them right here. I've got my little tray right here. And the first thing, when I'm sorting things, I'm sort of going, okay, what's the same and what's different? And if I look at this, I can see that you've got some have very long, what I call needle-like. So these are needles. Those would be needles. That's a needle. That's a needle. That's a needle. that's sort of a needle. This is the only one that's not a needle. It's not long and straight. So if you have something, and I'm going to get a little closer so you can actually see what it looks like. If you've got something that looks like this, it hasn't really got those long straight needles or long needles, but it's got these things called scales. So they are a type of needle, but they're called scales. And this is a cedar. So whenever you see this, you're looking at a cedar if you've got scales like this on your plant. So I'm just curious, has anybody got a cedar that you're looking at? Anybody got a cedar? And if you do, let us know, because I'm just curious. Oh, okay. So some people might. All right. So we've looked at that. So that's a cedar, and that's the easy way to tell those apart, is scales versus needles. So I'm going to take this one away, and then we're going to take a look at these ones. And these are easy to tell the difference because you've got one group that has bunches of needles. So more than one needle coming out of that one spot. So you can see with this one, you've got two needles and they come out from one spot. Whereas these, it's only one needle coming out from one spot. You see that? So I'm going to divide my plants again. I'm going to divide them up into needles with bunches, or needles in bunches, and needles in singles. And we'll look at those in a minute. So very quickly, when you've got a plant that has needles in bunches, sometimes the needles, the way they look, whether they're straight, whether they're soft, and the number of needles in a grouping will sometimes tell you the name of that tree. So I'm going to take this bunch and I'm going to show you a little trick with this one. Let's see if we can. No, I need another one. Okay, let's just see if I've got this one here. There we go. Okay, so what I want you to do is, can you tell me, I'm going to try and spread them out. Can you tell me how many needles I have in this bunch? There, can you tell me how many needles I've got in this bunch? And you can just type the answer into the chat. And I see we've got 5. That's right. We've got 5 needles. And so this one is a really easy one to tell, just to identify the name of this particular one. And all you have to do is spell the word, and it's W-H-I-T-E. So this is white pine. So you're looking for something that has 5 needles, and you're looking at a white pine. Some pines will have 3 needles. Some pines will have 2 needles, like this red pine. And then there's the fir. So we've got the fir and we've got a spruce. Now you may go, well, how do you know what the difference is? Well, the difference really comes down to this. Look at the ends of the spruce, which is right here. Look at those ends. Look at those tips. They are sharp. They are going to be really nasty on your fingers. So they're spiky. So spruce are spiky. And if that helps you remember, the other thing about spruce is the needles are square. So take a look at those needles, and they've got square needles. See the edges on them? Fir, on the other hand, the needles are flat, and they're also blunt. They don't prick. They don't feel bad on your fingers when you touch them. But the other thing that you can always look at when you're looking at a fir is look at the back, and you will see a little white lines. And that's something to help you identify the difference between a fir and a spruce. So spruce are spiky, fir are flat with blunt ends. So they feel okay to do it, to touch. So those are just some hints about some of the ways that you can identify different types of conifers: pine, spruce, fir, and cedar. Okay, I see some people were counting up to 5. So did anybody have, I was just wondering if people have got any of the twigs. Did you manage to identify the species of twig that you had close by? Here, I'll just show you a couple more pictures here. So we've got the white pine, got red here, and then we've got cedar, and this is actually juniper here. And there is the metasequoia that we have. It's a huge tree, and there are the cones and some leaves. So, you know, Victoria, I was wondering, you know, we've looked at some of the plants that would have been around at the time of the dinosaurs. And I'm just wondering, what about the dinosaurs that ate these plants? Because I'm assuming somebody ate the plants.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So when there are plants, there are animals that eat plants, and dinosaurs are no exception to that. So we're obviously in the Sioux exhibit, where Sioux is the big predator that eats other animals, but Sioux lived in an environment with lots of other dinosaurs, and many of them, most of them actually, were plant eaters. So I thought I would show a couple of the dinosaurs, 3 of them to be exact, that lived at the same time as Sioux and were plant eaters, and talk a little bit about their adaptations for eating plants and a little bit about what we know about what plants they ate. So I wanted to start in here with Sioux's skeleton with the skull of a duck-billed dinosaur called Edmontosaurus. This is a dinosaur that's really common in Alberta and Western North America. And Edmontosaurus and other duck-billed dinosaurs like it get their name because they have this ducky-shaped bills. They've got a broad, flat beak at the front. The beak, just like birds today, doesn't have any teeth in it. Instead, it would have had a keratinous or horny covering that would have almost made them like a shovel. So very, very good at biting and nipping plants. And just like a lot of mammals, but in their own unique way, duck-billed dinosaurs had grinding teeth. So they don't really have molars like mammals, but they did have this really cool adaptation called a dental battery. That's a fancy way of saying that all of their teeth interlock together and form this grinding surface, which you can see right here. If you kind of zoom in, I've got my little laser pointer, this flat surface here where the teeth get worn down and end up making this flat grinding surface.
Can you put your light on there one more time?
I'll put my light on it one more time. How's that?
Okay.
Yeah, right along there. So all of those are little teeth, kind of like a pencil. And then they get worn down. And unlike us, we only get 2 sets of teeth in our life. But dinosaurs are a bit more like sharks or other reptiles, where they're replacing their teeth all the time. So a tooth lasts about 2 years in a duck-billed dinosaur, and it basically gets ground out all the way, and then another one is growing up behind it, and it pops out, and then there's a fresh new grinding surface. So you have these really neat adaptations. We know that duck-billed dinosaurs were able to rear up on their hind legs, so they could reach into tall trees. So they might have been eating some of the gymnosperms that we were just learning about that were alive at the time, were things like metasequoia. But they also could browse on the ground too if they wanted to. So they really could eat a lot of different types of foods. Pretty much any plant in their environment was probably fair game for these dinosaurs. We also have a couple of examples of dinosaurs that ate wood because they had wood in their bellies when they died. And a really weird example where we actually found some crabs in their bellies. And those might have been crabs living in like decaying wood. So that's a really weird thing. They probably didn't eat crabs, right? Mostly plant eaters. Let's take a little walk and take a look at a couple of the other ones. We're going to come along this way and check out one of my very favorite dinosaurs. My personal favorite group of dinosaurs, tyrannosaurs are pretty cool, but I don't think they're nearly as cool as the armored dinosaurs called ankylosaurs. These are my absolute favorite guys. And this is Ankylosaurus, the biggest and last of the ankylosaurs. This is a very big head. So what we're looking at here, Ankylosaurus has these two horns on the back. It's got all this cool ornamentation on the skull, and this is its snout. And those are where his nostrils are, right under here. And let me turn a light on so it's a little bit easier to see what's going on here. So there's Ankylosaurus's eye. And you can see that it's got a really broad beak. There's no teeth in this beak, just like in the Edmontosaurus that we just saw. And Ankylosaurus's teeth are actually so small, they're really hard to see in here, and a lot of them are missing in this particular skull. But their teeth would look a little bit like my hand, like a little leaf, and only be about this big, even in this big, big skull. So they had really different feeding adaptations compared to those hadrosaurs. They weren't grinding their food up in the same way. They didn't have that special dental battery. And we also know that Ankylosaurs, they are very low, flat, coffee table shaped dinosaurs. So these are not dinosaurs that would be rearing up on their hind legs. So they would have to eat plants that are close to the ground. So they would have been eating things like ferns, maybe some of those horsetails that we saw, which I also think are very cool. They might have been eating low shrubs, some of those early flowering plants. And they might even have been digging sometimes in the ground and using their nose to nose around in the ground and eat roots and tubers, which is pretty cool. We also have an example of an ankylosaur from Alberta called Borealopelta, which is at the Royal Museum, and it was preserved with ferns in its belly. So we know that they definitely ate ferns at least sometimes, which is pretty cool. So those are good. I like these dinosaurs. Edmontosaurus was really common in Sue's environment, and Ankylosaurus was very rare. So they're not a really common dinosaur to have found.
What's that? Sorry, this is up on the screen. What's that? That it's
That's not my favorite picture, I guess. But yes, anyway, so Ankylosaurus probably was food for Sue sometimes.
okay.
But they were very armored and very formidable at defending themselves. So probably not a really common food source for Sue, even though that's what we have in this exhibit. So one of my friends helped design this exhibit, and I feel like it might be a little bit of a tease at me sometimes. So, all right, and let's take a look at our last plant-eating dinosaur over here. I'm sure that everyone has seen this dinosaur before. This is one of the most famous dinosaurs. This is Triceratops, and Triceratops, like Ankylosaurus and Sue, are the last of their group. So this is the last of the ceratopsians, or horned dinosaurs. It's a really big dinosaur. I mean, this is about an elephant-sized animal. They have a really, really big head with this big frill on the back. They've got these iconic horns in front of their eyes. And on the nose, where it gets its name. So three-horned face for Triceratops. So Triceratops, like Edmontosaurus, has evolved a set of grinding and chopping teeth. So they actually did this independently of each other. So two groups of dinosaurs evolved this ability to grind up food. So if we take a look at its teeth here, those teeth are kind of like in the hadrosaur. They're all bunched up together and they make a really, really cool grinding surface. This surface is vertical instead of horizontal. So you might want to think of it more as like a chopping surface or like scissors together. So that means that they could chop up relatively tough food. And they also had very strong jaws for a plant eater. And then the biggest difference is probably the shape of their beak at the front. So again, like most plant-eating dinosaurs, they've got a toothless beak at the front that would have had a horny covering. But unlike the duck-billed dinosaurs and the Ankylosaurus, this one is pointy like a parrot's beak. So that means it would have been good at chopping or sort of plucking things. And it's very, very sharp and would have been very, very strong. So Triceratops is probably eating something quite different from either of those two dinosaurs that we just looked at. So again, we know it's eating plants. It might have been able to eat tougher food, like maybe like woodier plants or seeds, or maybe some of those cones that we were looking at earlier.
Well, can I just jump in? Because
Yeah.
you said that beak, it reminds me of the BC mountain dinosaur,
That's right.
Ferrosaurus, that has a beak-like mouth. And Jenny in the back end there of our room, Jenny, might be a good time to share a link to all that great online stuff about there. She's done it, the Mountain Dinosaur of BC. And there's a lesson plan in there for grade 7 science, looking at 3D images of bones from Ferrosaurus and sort of putting a skeleton together like a paleontologist. And there's also a really wonderful video in there about Ferrosaurus for like younger learners for K-1 as well. Thanks, Jenny, for doing that.
Yeah, and Ferrosaurus is a great example of a dinosaur that lived at the same time as Sue, but on the other side of the mountains in British Columbia. So it's a dinosaur that maybe was in Sue's environment, but might not have been in Sue's environment. We're not really sure. It's basically a close cousin of Triceratops, but much, much smaller, more like a sheep-sized animal.
Right. So
So those are our three really cool herbivorous dinosaurs. There's other herbivorous dinosaurs that lived at the same time as Sue, but these are kind of the three like big ones, the mega herbivores.
right.
But we've got to finish off by talking about Sue a little bit.
What is going on?
All right, so you might notice here that Sue has something in their mouth. And this is a juvenile Edmontosaurus. So the very first skull we looked at was Edmontosaurus. This is a baby or a subadult Edmontosaurus. And so that was probably one of the preferred food items for Sue. Hadrosaurs were really abundant in their environment. They don't have a lot of really good defenses. And babies in particular would have been probably pretty easy prey. So Sue could attack full-grown dinosaurs if they wanted to, but a lot of predators like to have easier prey, and so a lot of predators will go after babies or juveniles. So it might be a little bit sad and grim, but that is how nature works, and it's probably a pretty accurate reconstruction. So obviously Sue does not have those grinding teeth for grinding up tough plant matter.
Wow.
Sue has sharp teeth for catching prey and chopping down and getting it inside their gullet.
Wow, that is a pretty amazing one.
And we've got an example in the Sue exhibit of what Sue's breath might have smelled like having to eat meat all the time. And I will tell you, it's not very good.
We don't think it's good.
I do recommend
is-
smelling it, but I recommend smelling it once.
This is an expert paleontologist
Yes.
opinion on what the breath of a dinosaur might.
It's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you for that. That is so fascinating. It's really neat. I know Corinne's still in the back room there from Ontario to see some of those plants, and then to like see examples of the dinosaurs that would. Oh my god. Dr. Arbor, just stay where. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. If you could, Dr. Arbor, there's a Tyrannosaurus
Should I
Rex,
look
right?
around
But I
here?
think you should definitely.
What? There's oh my gosh.
Okay. All right.
There's-
This is unexpected.
An unexpected T-Rex.
Okay. Oh my goodness. But you know what? I think this is an amazing opportunity.
What an amazing opportunity.
You could
to
actually-
help the source
Oh my goodness.
For some great information about what dinosaurs ate. So T-Rex, I think do you have a name, T-Rex? Have we ever like
You know, I've heard a rumor. Is your name it's not Sue. Is it Terry?
oh Terry, you must be Sue's younger cousin because you
Yeah.
haven't gotten to full size
Yeah,
yet.
yeah,
Oh wow,
yeah.
that's really cool.
Terry. Yeah, yeah.
So Terry, tell me, do you ever eat plants? No. So do you like to eat baby dinosaurs instead? Oh wow, that's pretty amazing. It makes sense because you got those sharp teeth, just like Big Sue here. So Terry, do you think is it hard to catch baby dinosaurs when they're hiding in plants and they're all camouflaged? Yeah, it's pretty hard to do that. Hey, what about if they're out in the open, away from all the plants that might help hide them? Does that make it a bit easier to catch them? Yeah. Okay. Wow, that sounds good. You look like you might be hungry now that we've been talking about food.
Wow. I'm just that.
Did you know that T-Rex is famous nowadays? Very famous dinosaur.
Wow. Oh my, and look, I'm just gonna look at those teeth. Those are fantastic. Well, Terry. Terry, thank you so much for joining us. You must have heard all about the Hungry Dinosaur program today. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, and you know what? We're just gonna let you
Maybe go
carry
have some
on with
lunch.
your day
Yeah.
because clearly, I mean, I'd heard rumors that there might have been a live T-Rex up here at the gallery, but I guess it's true. Okay, there, Terry. We're gonna,
Bye,
wow.
Terry.
Bye, Terry. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming, Terry. Bye. Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Well, okay, I'm a little bit flabbergasted. I don't know about you.
I would certainly not expect to see a live T-Rex here.
I mean, I heard a rumor, but goodness. Karine, did you get to see that? Holy smokes.
I did. I was just, as you say, flabbergasted, gobsmacked, jaw dropping. I've never seen a T-Rex like that, and named Terry, no less, named Terry.
I know, named Terry of all things.
Yeah.
Well,
And you know what? I'm thinking of, when he said how much easier it was to catch, prey when they're out in the open versus under plants. And you know what? One of the things that I want to mention was that there were lots of wildfires because of all the conifers. And there were lots of wildflowers. And when those plants had those flowers, what was really good is that all sorts of new little plants started to grow. So it was a great feeding place in the forest after the fire. So maybe after a fire, maybe they were hunting for delicious food.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
That is, I just love this connection between the plants and the dinosaurs. So we have about 15 minutes left if we need it, and we can open up the chat now for some questions. If anybody wants to ask Karine at the Royal Botanical Gardens about some of the plants she's shown, or maybe tell us about what plants you might have brought today to the program, or if you have dinosaur questions for Dr. Arbor, please feel free to put those in the chat, and Jenny's going to help us out with that. I will see if I can see the questions here. Oh,
Actually, I have a question that I was just curious about, and is what like how do you figure out what, I mean, I know what plants were there because of fossil records, you saw those examples, but how do you know what the dinosaurs have eaten?
Yeah, what a great question. How do we know what dinosaurs eat? So we look at lots of different lines of evidence as paleontologists, because we can't go back and just watch what they're eating, like we can watch with modern animals today. So we look at things like I was talking about, like the shape of their teeth and the shape of their jaws, how their jaws would move and chew food. We might look at other parts of their body to see if they could dig or scrape or reach or all of those kinds of things. So we use anatomy a lot. We also use special fossils where the stomach contents might be preserved. So if they have, like I mentioned, wood or ferns in their bellies, that can help us know. We can also look for fossil poops, which are called coprolites. And so that's always really fun. So we know that there are examples of fossil poops that are probably from hadrosaurs because they're full of plants and little bits of wood and things like that. And there is actually even fossil poop from T-Rex from Saskatchewan, Canada. And it is full of digested bone and all of the stuff that goes with that. So, and it's really big. So the only thing that can make it is a T-Rex. It's like this big. And we also can look at sort of more technical things. We can look at the chemical compositions reported in the teeth of dinosaurs. We call those isotopes, and that tells us about where they are in the food chain and how different chemicals have kind of gone through the different food levels. There's just so many different ways that we can help answer these questions. And not every paleontologist will do every of those studies, but all of us working together help sort of paint the picture together.
now I see, thank you for that. There are a bunch of questions. And one of them I was wondering myself. So I'm going to ask that question that I saw. And then Jenny, maybe you can help me and read out some of the questions. So the question was, do you know if there's any dinosaurs that are omnivores that eat plants and animals?
What a great question. That is actually a kind of hard question to answer, as it turns out. So we've got examples of dinosaurs that are definitely mostly herbivores based on the shape of their teeth and things like that. So that would be examples that I showed here today. We've got examples of dinosaurs that are probably just meat eaters, like Sioux and other tyrannosaurs. And then we've got examples of dinosaurs, especially the relatives of T-Rex that have lost their teeth. So there's many theropod dinosaurs, the bigger group of meat-eating dinosaurs that have lost their teeth over evolutionary time and just have a toothless beak. That's actually a little bit tricky because they don't really have teeth for grinding up plants, but they also don't have sharp teeth for eating meat. So you think that some of those types of dinosaurs like oviraptorosaurs or ornithomimids or therizinosaurs, so oviraptors are the ones that have a little crest on their head and sit on their nests of eggs. Ornithomimids look like ostriches, and therizinosaurs big sickle-shaped claws. Some of those ones might have been omnivorous. Some of them also have things called gastroliths or belly stones, which you usually only see in plant-eating animals that help grind up their food. So it's a really tricky question, actually, because if you're not one or the other, it gets actually kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, good question. Thanks for that question. All right, Jenny, do you want to read out some of the early questions?
Yes, right before we do that, I have something here in the Handling collection that may be, it may help us see what,
Victoria can come around and
yeah.
look.
yeah, I will just spotlight it for a moment so people can see. Add spotlight.
Oh, yeah.
Ah,
That's a duck-billed dinosaur jaw.
Yeah, because I
Want
know
to say that again?
That's a hadrosaur jaw. That's a duck-billed dinosaur jaw, like we were looking at the beginning. And that's a really good example of looking at that grinding surface with all the little individual teeth. So the teeth kind of look like little diamond-shaped pencils almost. And then you can see how they've gotten worn down and they make that smooth surface from grinding up all of the plants.
And then when you flip it over,
Yeah, then you can see all the teeth. So all of those little ridges are individual teeth stacked one on top of another. I think there's sometimes at least like 4 per column. And all of those teeth that you see lower down are the ones that are growing up and are going to replace the ones that have worn down all the way and pop out.
Neat.
It's really, really different from how our teeth work. So it can be a little hard to picture and understand.
It is hard to picture, but that's thanks, Jenny, for showing that. That visual is super helpful.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I wanted to show in the beginning, but you were on such a roll, so I was like, not yet.
We're on a roll.
But we do have quite a lot of questions. So one of them is, are all the dinosaurs on display real in this exhibit?
So in this exhibit, because it's a traveling exhibit, the fossils are casts of originals that are mostly at the Field Museum. So the big skeleton of Sue is an exact copy made out of a more durable material than the fossils themselves. So the original Sue bones live at the Field Museum in Chicago, and then we have these other ones that are exact copies that travel so they don't get damaged. Now, the one exception is there is a real Triceratops skull over here. That's the original bones. We can walk over to this one. And so this one is the original skull material, but it's very delicate. So everyone has to be very careful when they're shipping it from museum to museum.
Wow. That's why it's in the glass case.
That's why it's in the glass case too. That's a great question though.
All right, next question. Jenny, if you want to read it out. Oh, have we lost you? Are you there?
Yes, I am here. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So the question is, when did the T-Rex go extinct? How long did the T-Rex live for? And did they have any predators?
Ooh, what great questions. Okay, so T-Rex existed from about 68 to 66 million years ago. And T-Rex is one of the last dinosaurs that are not birds that live on to today. T-Rex is one of the dinosaurs that is alive when the asteroid impact causes the mass extinction that kills all the big dinosaurs except for little flying birds. And so, yeah, so we have a very hard date on when T-Rex goes extinct, and it's 66 million years ago. And what was the third question? I've already forgotten it. Sorry.
Yeah, me too.
Yes. Did they have any predators?
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So probably adult T-Rex, probably not. The only thing I think that could eat another T-Rex is another T-Rex. So maybe juvenile T-Rexes might have been eaten by adult T-Rexes, but there's no other animals in that environment that could tackle a big T-Rex. That they're the biggest. They're the apex predator.
Wow, good question.
Thank you. Another question was, do you know what colors the dinosaurs were?
Oh, what a great question. So if you asked me that like 10 or 15 years ago, we would probably answer that we'll never know what colors dinosaurs are. Nowadays, we think that there might be some examples where we can tell what colors dinosaurs are. Certain types of colors sometimes might preserve in the fossil record, especially on feathery dinosaurs. So we can look for preserved pigment cells called melanosomes to get an idea if the dinosaur might have had brown or red or reddish brown colors or black. But we don't have any evidence for colors like yellow or green or blue, just because of the way those colors are produced in bodies today and how they might fossilize. So we can sort of know if there was brown, but we can't know if it wasn't blue, if that makes sense, or if there were blue splotches on a brown background or things like that. So a lot of dinosaur reconstructions that you see like art or the Sue that we've got here are usually a mix of what we know from the fossils and then sort of informed guesses based on what we think their behavior or habitat was like. So we've got Sue here, basically has this nice like brown color, which is a pretty common color for lots of animals, big animals especially to have. But Sue also has some cool spots along the body that might help camouflage, and some stripes along the tail that again might help camouflage and help them avoid detection when they're trying to sneak up on predators. So it's usually a little bit of a guess, and looking at the biology of modern living animals.
Good question. Thank you.
So do T-Rexes and other dinosaurs, do they have a den or do they sleep anywhere? Like do we know anything about their like living situation?
What an interesting question. So does T-Rex live in a den? So we don't know for T-Rex. My guess is T-Rex is so big, T-Rex probably would just sleep out in the open like a lot of animals do today. But we do have examples of denning dinosaurs that would sleep in burrows. There are some little dinosaurs called Eryctodromeus and Orodromeus. These are probably not household name dinosaurs. They lived about 100 million years ago, and we have found them in burrows. So we can tell when we're excavating if we're looking at a burrow versus just like the regular dirt and ground, because the sediment will look different from things around it. Sometimes we can even see like the cavity of the burrow and the channel going back up to the surface. And in that particular case with Eryctodromius, there were multiple little guys all kind of cuddled up next to each other in this burrow. So we know that at least a few small dinosaurs would dig burrows and dens. And now a lot of paleontologists are looking at that for other types of dinosaurs to see what other ones might have dug burrows and slept in dens. Dens are a really great way to avoid predators like T-Rex. So it's probably something that other dinosaurs did too. It's just a matter of finding the evidence for that.
Thank you so much.
That must
for
be
that,
so
Victoria.
exciting to find a dinosaur in
Very,
a burrow.
very cute.
Yeah,
I would love to find a little dinosaur in a burrow.
Yeah, that kind of goes into another question about how small could dinosaurs be? And also,
Dinosaurs can be super small. So the smallest dinosaur ever is a hummingbird. So of course, all birds today are dinosaurs. So the smallest dinosaur that we've ever found is one that's alive today. And it's one of the smallest hummingbirds. I forget the exact species name, but it's basically a hummingbird. It might be something called a bee hummingbird. But in terms of what most people are thinking of, which is extinct dinosaurs, they can go as small as about the size of a chicken is what we've found so far. So really, really small little dinosaurs have been found in the fossil record.
Thank you. We have a couple minutes and we have a few more questions left that I think we can get to. One is, what happened to, or what are the flying and underwater dinosaurs? You kind of mentioned that the dinosaurs today are birds. So what about the flying species and underwater species during the dinosaurs? Are those dinosaurs?
Oh, what a great question. So of course, birds are flying dinosaurs, and there were flying birds in the time of the dinosaurs. That's something that evolved actually quite a long time ago. So while the big dinosaurs like T-Rex around, there are also little feathery birds, bird dinosaurs also flying around. But I think when most people ask me that, they're probably asking about pterosaurs, which are the guys that fly on big leathery wings. So pterosaurs are dinosaur cousins, but they're not actually explicitly in the dinosaur family tree. They're basically like, if you're looking at sort of a family tree, dinosaurs are all in one thing, and then pterosaurs are off as the next little group of cousins, along with crocodiles. So pterosaurs are their own thing. They fly in a very different way to birds. But what they share with dinosaurs is the same kind of ankle joint, believe it or not. So they have a similar ankle to dinosaurs, and it's a little bit different from what we see in crocodiles, which are the next cousins out. These are all the fun things that we get to think about when you think about dinosaurs and their relatives. And then in the oceans at the same time as dinosaurs, there are a bunch of big marine reptiles, but none of them are really closely related to dinosaurs. So if you've ever heard of things like mosasaurs, those are actually really closely related to today's Komodo dragons. So they're basically just big lizards. And then there are animals called ichthyosaurs, which look like dolphins. We don't really know who those guys are related to, but they're not related to dinosaurs. And then same with the plesiosaurs, the sort of long-necked Nessie, Loch Ness monster type looking guys. None of them are actually really closely related to anything. So that's actually still a big question for a lot of paleontologists, is figuring out where some of those marine reptiles fit on the tree of life. And then there were also big sea turtles at the time too. And they were related to today's turtles as well.
So I see somebody had asked, are turtles dinosaurs? So.
Turtles are not dinosaurs. Turtles are actually another one of those ones where we don't really know where they fit on the tree of life. They're so different from other animals because of their shell that it's kind of hard to tell, but they're probably more closely related to crocodiles than they are to lizards, for example. So yeah, it's really fun trying to puzzle all these things out.
So many questions still
So many
left.
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, things that you would think would be really easy, like who are turtles related to, is actually not that easy to figure out sometimes.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Victoria. That
Yeah,
was so
thanks.
interesting. Oh, I love it. And we got to see, I don't know, Terry the T-Rex. I mean,
Terry.
unexpected.
All kinds of things.
Karine, are you in there? Can you pop in and wave goodbye to everybody? I think maybe I'll turn the camera around and we'll say goodbye. Jenny's gonna maybe put up a slide or two with some links. Yeah, that's just a link to our learning portal. And again, that's the link that we talked about for the Mountain Dinosaur of BC. There's some great activities there for learning about dinosaurs. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. And then, yeah, you can email us if you have any follow-up questions. There's information on digital field trips. And of course, Karine at Royal Botanical Gardens, they also do digital field trips as well. So thank you, everybody, for coming. And we can just do a little wave here. Karine, if you're there, you can pop your camera on and wave too.
My camera's on and I'm here and.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Thanks, and thanks for
Me-
helping
me-
out in the back, Jenny.
Me
Okay.
and my plants, the basis of all life, eh?
Yes,
Oh, yes.
yes, plants.
Plants,
Where would
there
we
wouldn't
be?
be, if there
Plants
wouldn't be the
rule, exactly.
dinosaurs being happy. T-Rex wouldn't be happy without the plants feeding the herbivores.
Yeah, and hiding the baby dinosaurs. Right, yeah.
Exactly.
Thanks
Thank you very much
Karini.
for